This is CS952 Introduction to Web Technologies and Design, and we're going to continue working on our home page. Now I want to point out something here. I'm going to click to hide to collapse our icons. Gives us more room on the page, and we have our live view scrub. It's all the way out to the maximum size, and I'm going to start to collapse the size of our web page. And notice where the line break is for the text on the page. It starts off with the word "this website," the humble, and we come across the break point there. We go to the next view. The width of the text hasn't changed, and we keep pushing it smaller, and we go to the small device, and the width of the text changes there. But again, as we make it smaller and smaller and smaller, the width of the text stays exactly the same. And then when we get to extra small view, at that point, then the width of the text depends on really how wide the screen is. Now by contrast, you'll notice that the width of our navigation bar is always changing, right? We can see how the word link keeps sliding in. So what's going on is there are actually two different kinds of containers in the Bootstrap framework. One of them is the regular container, which has inside of it a row of a fixed width with any given breakpoint. When we're looking at small devices or medium devices or large devices, the width of the text or the content always stays exactly the same. The other kind of Bootstrap container is a fluid container. And when we have a fluid container, what's inside of that is actually always changing, getting bigger and smaller. So if we look, our nav bar is in a fluid container. That's why it's always getting bigger and smaller, moving around the arrangement of the text. Whereas the container, the standard container that we're using for the content with the text, it has a fixed width inside of that. So let's add another container after the one that we already have for the humble pencil text. And this time, rather than using the container class, which is the first thing on the list when we go to add it, when we look what are the components for us to use from Dreamweaver, we're going to choose Container Fluid, which is the second one on the list, and we can get firsthand a feel for what the difference is between these two basic Bootstrap components. So what do we need to do? I'm going to open up again my panels, and I want to make sure that I have this div selected that says class equals container, because I want to add another container after that one. So with it selected, I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to go to my Bootstrap components, and this time we're choosing Container Fluid. Previously we chose Container the first time on the list. This time we're going to choose Container Fluid. So let's click on that. And then Dreamweaver asks us, where do we want to put it? Before, after? We want to put it after. We want to put it after. It's going to be the next item on the page. So we click and select after. Okay. I'm going to hit save. Save all. So we can see we have a new div now that's a member of the class Container Fluid. Right? Now the next thing we're going to do, we got that there, div class Container Fluid. There we go. Good. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add inside of that an H2 tag, a heading 2 tag. Alrighty? So with my div selected, I'm going to go to Insert, and this time I'm going to choose Heading, and I'm going to choose Heading 2. So let's add in our Heading 2, and we're going to nest it, because that means we're putting it inside of that div container. Okay, there we go. And now it says this is the content for layout H2 tag. Right. Well, I'd like to change that. I'd like to change that to featured pages. So I'm going to switch to my design view, and I'm going to highlight over this text, and I'm going to type in featured pages. Okay. Let's switch back to live view. Let's scroll down to have a look at that. So a couple things to do. First, I realized I want to start putting some styling changes in right away. So I'm going to create a new style rule. I'm going to go to CSS Designer. I'm going to select styles and global, because this rule is going to apply. It's going to be the same whether you're using a mobile device or a desktop computer. I'm going to click on the plus sign to add my new selector, and I want this to be a rule for all H2s, regardless of where they are on my website or on my web page. And so Dreamweaver's given us a very specific rule. I'm going to hit the up arrow key on the keyboard, and I'm going to hit the up arrow key again, because that's all I needed in the first place was H2. And in case you're wondering, yeah, you could just type H2 if you wanted to. You don't have to use this feature where Dreamweaver tries to guess at what kind of selector you want. So I'm going to say H2. And what do I want to do? I just want to make sure that my H2 has that same font that we're using for the H1s. That's easy enough. Now that we've got our selector, I go to my text properties, and I'm going to click down here. There's font family. I'm going to click on font family, and I will choose Happy Monkey. Alrighty, and there we go. Now our H2 has the exact same font as the H1. Now I'd like to make a bunch of styling rules for the container that's holding this, the container fluid. So let's create a new selector. So again, with styles selected and global, I'm going to click on the plus sign to make a selector, and I'm just going to type in the name of a selector. I'm going to type in the pound sign, which means, of course, that this is going to be an ID, and I'm going to call it icons, I-C-O-N-S, like 3 icons or 3 glyphicons, and then 3, T-H-R-E-E. Now, we haven't talked about rules for CSS selectors, but don't start them with numbers. Start them with letters, okay? They will not work if you use numbers. And I'm going to hit enter, and there we have it. We have icons 3. Now I want to make my div class container fluid. I want to make this a member of my icons 3. I want to assign it to that ID. So with my div selected, I can select it either in the document object, the DOM panel, or can select it here in the status bar. And then I'm just going to go over to div ID, and I'm going to click on icons 3. And now we can see that our div is both a member of the container fluid class and also a member of the icons 3 class. Now I'd like to do something else. I'm thinking that we'll put in a few styling rules for our new icons 3. And everything that we have in this div, I'd like to center align the text. So how do we create a rule that's going to center align all the text for our icons 3? Well, we've got icons 3 selected over here in our selectors, and I'm just going to click on my text properties, and I'm going to click down until I see text align center, and I will click center. And this is an example of cascading style sheets, right? The cascading property. We said apply this rule to the div with an ID of icons 3, and then everything that's in that, this rule cascades down, which this includes, of course, my H2 tag, because my H2 tag is in there. Okay, so you know what? Let's pause here, and then we will move on, and we'll get started adding additional content to our new fluid div container.